Welcome everyone to our City Council meeting for Monday, January 14th. If we could have a roll call to establish quorum, Madam Clerk.
Bob Thomas?
Here.
Harry Meyer?
Here.
Vicki Schneider?
Here.
Terry McClung?
I'm here.
Susan Harmon?
Here.
Melissa Green?
I'm here.
We have 6.
All right. Stand and pledge allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Get a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All right. Any corrections or any additions? All right, hearing none, get a motion to, all those in favor of the agenda as submitted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Get a motion to approve the minutes for December 10th.
So moved.
Second.
Any additions? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes as submitted, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'm not voting since I wasn't here.
All right, Susan's abstains. That brings us to commission reports, and I have asked Mr. Jackson to come up from Carroll County Solid Waste. We've got a rate proposal that is going to be going before the city, and wanted him to explain what's happening. So, sir.
I believe that you've all received a letter from me. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it or not. If you had, we're requesting a 3.5% rate increase. Actually, it's the first rate increase we've requested since 2008, 10 years. If you look at that, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I would glad to answer any questions y'all might have. I'd also be glad to invite you to come to Carroll County Solid Waste and look at the things we're doing, at the programs that we have. I feel very confident that we are probably a leader in the state of Arkansas and actually in the South of all the services that we provide. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Phil. What's this going to do for just a residential consumer in Eureka Springs? That's all I need.
I did not bring a rate sheet with me, but if you take 3.5% of the current rate, so if it's $10, it'd be, what, 35 cents? 12. I sent rates over, but I did not bring the rate sheet tonight.
Okay, so, and I guess how does that work, Mr. Mayor? You just bill the customer accordingly to what they charge?
That's just a pass-through charge.
Okay.
Yep. So if it's 35 cents...
yeah, whatever it is, it's just 3.5% on their current rate.
Yeah, on a $10 bill, so it'd be $10.35. That would be showing up in their February bill.
Gotcha.
There haven't been a rate increase, as Mr. Jackson's note, I think since 2008. So that's one of the reasons they're asking for the rate increase.
Do we have to approve this or something? Or?
No, I mean, it's just a pass-through deal that we're going through, so I think it would be best if we did approve it.
Yeah. The way your contract reads, which we can do it, every year, that's not our job. But I think that the way it is if there's an objection, then there's a process to go through. But I think that the mayor is absolutely correct. It would be helpful to us and for minutes and things like that in the future if the request was approved. And I would appreciate that very much.
Ms. Helen?
Question. Will the bill, when it comes, will it have a note saying that there has been an increase? Will that be noted on the bills when they're received?
The bill comes through, it's on your water bill. So as that's where it would be. So it would have to be reflected on there, and I'm sure that they can put something on there, but I'm not sure.
I don't think it will be. I think it's just going to be, it's kind of like our water rate increase. It just goes automatic.
Okay. And then my next question is, since this is effective the 1st of January, will that will that be 2 times?
No,
or
that will
are-
be reflected, because we're kind of a month behind, so this will be reflected in the February
Okay,
billing.
all right, that's it.
Any other questions?
Yes, Harry's got one though.
Yes, sir.
All residential rates are the same, right? Like, my trash bill and my water bill is the same as yours because of...
Correct. Yeah.
That's what
I mean,
thought.
there is a difference if we throw out extra garbage and extra material or stuff like that, but the normal rate is the same.
Right, right.
Mr. McClung?
That's what I thought.
Can we do this by a simple motion,
Yes, sir.
so it doesn't have to be by ordinance?
A resolution.
I'd like to make a motion that we, as a council, approve the rate increase for the trash service.
I'll second it.
3.5%.
Any other discussion? Mr. Thomas?
I'd just like to say this is not on the agenda.
It is.
It's under
Well-
commissions. It's under commissions.
Well, but I mean, voting up a rate increase.
We're approving.
You're You're correct. In that sense, it is on the agenda that we would discuss, we would have this information on, would be discussing the report. There's been a motion and a second on the floor. If you object to, and based on that, I'm not sure how we're going to handle that.
Well, I would amend the motion to postpone this until the next meeting, voting on the rate increase.
Okay? Get a second on that?
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion on deferring this to the next meeting? Yes, ma'am.
We're talking a mere 35 cents. Can you not just sit there and say, do y'all feel good with this? And we go, sure, and not vote? Just make a vocal approval?
We would still, it's best to go ahead and have this in the motion. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I guess maybe we had kind of decided, is there a hurry to vote on this?
No, it's going to be we're going to try to put this into effect February
Why
1st.
don't we, let's put it on the next agenda, then.
That's the motion.
So it gets in the paper.
Mr. McClung?
Mr. Mayor, we're talking about 35 cents a household, or whatever it is. I can't remember the exact amount. It's I think we're making something out of nothing. I think we should vote and move on.
Ms. Harmon?
I kind of agree with Terry. Would anybody have a reason why we couldn't do it tonight as opposed to delaying?
Mr. Thomas?
For me, it has nothing to do with 35 cents. It's the principle of the thing. We are committed. The previous council at one point committed to a format for amending the agenda, which we did not follow tonight. And, I think citizens have a right to always know when we're going to be voting on any kind of increase. We're not the ones that say, oh, well, this is not significant. This is not significant. That's inappropriate for me.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of deferring this until our next meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Let's have a roll call. Let's make sure.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Schneider?
I suppose.
Mr. McClung?
Oh.
Ms. Harmon?
No.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
4-2.
All right. We'll take this up at our next meeting. Thanks, Mr. Jackson.
And Phil, you are sure that this won't screw anything up for you guys?
No, ma'am, it'll be fine.
Okay, because you know what our response is anyway.
Yeah, but I would invite anybody that has any questions or anything, please give me a call. Okay, and I'd also invite you to come over and visit with us and see what we're doing.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
They keep a pretty clean house.
All right. It does bring us up to issues of vacancies in the Planning Commission. We have a vacant position on number 3 and 5. Susan Harmon is still on the Planning Commission. I'm not.
No.
She needs to be recognized. She can't sit on that commission at this point in time. Well, she can, because she's not on any other commissions, if it's approval with the council. But I don't think that's the one we're going to do.
Could I ask, are all the microphones working? I'm having a real hard time hearing people.
All right. The question is, at this point in time, we have positions vacant in planning. And we also have a position vacant. We're going to be coming up on the votes with CAPC. But for the planning at this point, I think, Mr. McClung, what you're saying.
I got ahead of myself. No, I'm fine with what you're saying.
Okay.
I'm confused on what you're saying. Is she on or not?
At this point, she has not resigned.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Can we switch and go to the CAPC and then come back to planning?
No.
We will. I mean, we can do that without a problem. That's the next one on there. There isn't anything to do on the planning at this point in any way.
Because Susan's on both, and I think...
She's already resigned from the CAPC.
Oh, she's, okay.
Mr. Thomas, you had a question?
Not a question, but the code says that one city council person can be on planning, so I don't think that there's any question as to whether or not she can continue.
The question remains is if she gets voted on the CAPC, she can't be on both.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
My plan is to probably resign. I'm leaning towards resigning from planning, regardless of anything else that happens. So that's just
Okay.
where we're at.
Okay.
I have not officially resigned.
But you're going to.
Because they did need a quorum for the first meeting. So I did attend the first meeting of this year, which was last week. And then we will have another one on whatever day it is.
Next week?
Is it next week? Probably, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll play it by ear. Yeah. All right. All right, so our next issue is the CAPC positions. We do have positions vacant that are normal recommendations from the CAPC, and then we also have the position 5, which is a vacant city council member seat. Mr. McClung?
I'd like to nominate Ms. Harmon for CAPC.
Okay, get a second.
I'll second that.
All right. Any other nominations?
How about discussion?
Well, I'm asking if there's any other nominations.
For that seat?
Yes,
Because we got 2.
right.
Okay.
Okay. If not, do you want to discuss on,
My hand is up for that.
you want to discuss?
No,
Susan.
my hand is up for that, for the position. If we have 2 positions, why are we not doing one person at a time? I don't understand.
We are doing one person at a
We
time.
just asked if there was a...
Any other nominations for that position?
But we've got...
Never, all right.
We're going to vote on Susan.
We're going to vote on Susan. All right. All those in favor of
Wait,
Susan?
what happened to discussion?
Okay.
Okay, discuss, Vicki.
Are we into discussion now?
We are discussing,
Okay.
okay.
My only problem is, Susan, I know you've been doing a great job on there, but I really think you need to put as much of your time as possible to being on council, learning council. It is not easy. There's a lot of time involved, and I really, really do think you should go ahead and let CAPC go just for this first year and get extremely comfortable and well ensconced in council. I really, really do, because you've got council, planning, and CAPC. There's no way. I know, but what I'm saying is you really need to
If she gets to be on the planning commission, she will, if she gets on
You really need
CAPC,
to concentrate on council.
if she gets,
Get a year in on council and then go back to it. I'm just
All right.
saying, because I know how hard it is.
any other discussion? Mr. McClung?
Yeah, just, and I appreciate what you're saying, Mickey, but I've worked with Susan the last couple of years on CAPC, and I assure you she's quite capable of both commissions with no problem. She's very, very apt.
All right, all those, any other discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can I vote for myself,
Sure.
Yes.
or do I have to?
You're able.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason, Mr. Attorney, for her to abstain.
She can abstain if she feels a conflict. No one else can force her to abstain.
Okay, I just want to know.
It's up to you. All right. All those in favor of Susan being on the CAPC, let's have a roll call vote.
Yes. Mr. Thomas?
Present.
Mr. Meyer?
Yeah.
Ms. Harmon?
Yes.
Mr. McClung?
Yes?
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Schneider?
No.
4-1-1.
All right, congratulations. All right, I have a position, need a nomination for the position number 2. Yes,
And would like to nominate Terry McClung.
get a second?
I'll second that.
All right, discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I was going to nominate Bob. We've got both of
Okay.
them, and no
Well-
one can decide what they want to do, so let them argue it out.
Well, we'll vote and see how it works.
Are both of you willing to accept?
Yeah, that's-
Is
that-
the question.
That's what I wanted.
Mr. Thomas?
I'm pondering whether to accept or not. I think Mr. McClung has much more experience. He's much more prepared to serve. I brought some new ideas to the commission, but, I support his candidacy.
Terry,
Miss,
Pardon me?
do you want to do it? You haven't said.
Well, I was nominated, though.
Both you and Bob are nominated for one position. Are you
Okay.
even interested in running?
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't throw a fit, did I?
Miss Green?
I guess that's where
I
it's
was going to
supposed
say,
work, right?
I
You
like
accept the
both
nomination.
Bob and Terry. Do you want to be on, Bob?
I would
Just
not
say
run
yes.
against Terry. I think
Okay.
he's more...
But you would do
better
it
candidate.
otherwise? You would do it, okay.
Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote, please. All those in favor of Mr. McClung on being on CAPC?
Oh, Mayor.
Not
You might want to clarify that it is for which of the positions. You said position 5 for Ms. Harmon,
Yeah,
and you
this
said
one-
position 2 a minute ago, which 2 is, I believe, one of the merchant
that
spots.
No,
is
it's
six.
position 6.
So it'd be position 6.
Yeah.
which
And do
you're
we or
filling
do we
here.
not have two people?
The only reason it makes a difference is the expiration term.
Sure.
Oh, I see.
Position 6, thank you, sir.
So this vote is for Mr. McClung for position 6, yes?
Correct.
Mr. McClung?
Yes?
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I was present. The sound system is really bad tonight. Present.
Thank you. Ms. Schneider?
Yes.
Ms. Harmon?
Yes.
5-0-1.
Congratulations, Mr. McClung.
Thank you. I'll be happy to do it.
All right, this brings us to public comments. Do we have any public comments?
Hello, everyone. Victor Smith. Everybody knows me, I think. Here for the discussion of food trucks, and would just like to put my opinion in the evaluation of our 2 years now of having food trucks in the city. From the get-go, I stated that I don't think our small town can handle 10 trucks running around, setting up wherever they like. I would like to see in the original food truck laws were that a private landowner or a private business owner can operate a secondary business under his land. I'd like to see that go back in there. I do see lots of value in the lottery. It's worked out for me. Obviously, you can see that I'm the only one here fighting for it, as I have been from the start. I would like to see Highway 62, maybe some of those lottery picks be changed up or not so secluded to one area on there. I think you have people that are setting up there and could set up there when you're giving away lottery tickets to people that are wasting them. I think it's just, I would like to just see that maybe relooked at on Highway 62. And if you own a business in Eureka, you should be able to operate a secondary business from your business. That's all.
Any other public comments? All right, that closes for public comments. Get a motion to discuss under new business, setting the meeting dates for 2019.
So moved.
Second.
All right, get a motion from someone to establish our meeting dates.
I'll make a motion to establish our meeting dates for 2019.
Second.
As you want to do, as what we have present?
As what we have present.
Okay. You want, unless you want, would you like to discuss December and November? You want to put that in a motion, or you want to bring that?
Oh, okay. I'll make a motion that we discuss November and December.
No.
Okay, we're discussing dates, let's just...
We're still doing the dates,
Okay.
and we're trying to do the dates as we had.
Okay, well,
But we have some other issues always come up, so...
Okay, do you want me to rework that motion?
Yes, unless Mickey's got one handy.
Okay.
Unless you want to take it. We have a second, I think, didn't we?
Okay, I'll make a stab at it. I make
We
a
have a
motion
second on- no.
that we discuss the 2019 city council meetings as, to see if they were going to keep them as stated or if we're going to change them.
No, say what you want. Please, don't.
Pick those dates. Oh, okay.
We can go, there is a schedule in here.
Okay. I make a motion to discuss the 2019 city council meetings, the May 27th, the November 11th, and
December 9th.
the November 25th, and the December 29th. 9th. December 9th. Okay.
Second.
Mr. Thomas?
I would amend the motion to adopt the schedule as printed, and then it would be up for discussion.
That's what I thought we did at the beginning.
Okay.
Would we, I think it'd be a lot cleaner if we would just go ahead and have Mickey withdraw her second, and same thing with...
I'll withdraw my motion, and my second's out.
All right.
And I'll withdraw.
Bob, go ahead and make your motion, please, sir.
I move to approve the schedule as printed.
I'll second it.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Mr. McClung?
I certainly am not wanting to try and have meetings on Memorial Day or Veterans Day. However, I don't want to, I would rather leave them on the agenda, and then when we got closer, if we didn't have anything that was pending, then we could set them aside. Otherwise, at that particular time, if we needed to have that meeting, we could change a date. And not have it on that day, but change it at that time.
Ms. Harmon?
Just to clarify what Terry's saying, is there any reason why, is there any minimum number of meetings that we have to have per year?
No.
Okay, so
Well,
if...
there is, but not, we meet that more
We
than...
meet it, okay. So if Memorial Day weren't there, if Veterans Day weren't there, and if we had something that came up that was an emergency we could always do, what would we do? A special one? Or we would just say it's still scheduled as...
We could set up a new meeting date
Okay, if we knew.
if we need one. Yeah. Ms. Snyder?
Okay, putting off to the last minute is one of our problems, Terry. We've done that way too long, and it's caused way too many problems, and there's no reason. There's no way we're going to meet on Memorial Day and November, Veterans Day, unless you want this town to come after you. I'm not kidding. We are supposed to be thanking our people for risking their lives for us, and so we have the right to meet in this room. You do not have a council meeting on those days. You can do it the next day if you have something integral that has to be done. You don't do it on those 2 days. In the past, and for quite a while, even though it's not law, quote unquote, we have met once in November and once in December. And looking at the dates on all my calendars, there's no reason why for the November meeting we can't meet just once on the 18th, which is right square in the middle of the month, and it doesn't hurt any kind of travel. I had to forego all of my family stuff so I could come out here for this last second November meeting, which we did not have to have. For December, because of the way that falls with 5 Mondays or whatever, if we meet the one time only in December on on the 16th. That puts it right square in the middle of the month, rather than the second Monday, and then you've got forever until the next meeting. For May 27th, for Memorial and Veterans, like I said, we can go a day after, a week after, or just ignore it. But I'm not kidding. You will have this whole town yelling, screaming, and hollering if we are not sitting there respecting our military.
Mr. Mayor, can I say something just real quick?
Okay.
Apparently you didn't listen to me, Ms. Snyder. I said we would not meet on those days. I didn't want to pull the meetings clear out until at that particular time when we got there, and if we saw we needed the meeting, then we could reschedule that date, otherwise not have it. That's what I said.
No.
Apparently you missed it.
Yeah, first you
All right,
said
no,
we could,
wait,
then you
let's,
switched.
okay. Ms. Green?
Okay, when we get closer to May 27th, we can agree that we're going to change the date, and we can come up with a new date for that meeting as it gets closer. If we try to come up with a new date now, there's just so many other things that could be going on. The same with Veterans Day. When it gets close, we can, I think, come up with a new meeting. We've always, as long as I can remember, had meetings, 2 meetings in November. Yes, we can change that last one to be either earlier or later, but I think those meetings are important at that time of year because we're starting our budget talks for the following year.
Mr. Thomas?
I think Mr. McClung is saying leave them in and we can possibly take them out. Why don't we take them out and we could possibly put them back in if we need them?
No, that's what I thought you said.
At this point, they're not even scheduled for the meetings.
Pardon?
At this point, the 2019 are not scheduled as meeting dates. If you look over to the far right-hand side, it's blank.
Oh, okay. Then it's already that way.
We have a ton of blanks.
That's a note of the meeting dates, and it's Memorial Day and Veterans Day, so.
Okay. So then the motion would be to approve this exactly as it's written.
That was the motion.
Right. Okay.
Ms. Snyder?
But we have a whole bunch of blanks.
No, September 23rd, 5:15 monthly budget review. October 14th regular meeting.
Right.
Okay.
August 26th.
Oh, I was way over on the right. Okay, you mean the middle.
All right.
Mayor,
Yes.
if you approve them with blanks in those spots, and you don't approve a second regular meeting in those months, you present the argument to someone that any meeting that would be held a second time in those months is a special meeting, and therefore limited by the special meeting rules, which has a different quorum rule,
True.
which also has a different rule as to how many issues can be brought up.
Can we not establish a meeting, a regular meeting date in October for November? That have been special?
Potentially you could, but it leaves the argument
That's a
somewhat
special.
open to a court.
Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Meyer.
Yeah, I think that if those rules apply, that wouldn't be a problem, because we discussed that we could, if something came up, we could call a meeting, and it would have to be a special meeting following the special meeting rules and all that.
Ms. Harmon?
Can I amend
Yes,
Bob's
ma'am.
original that I seconded?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'd like to go ahead and amend the original to say that we will accept these meetings with the exception of, not the exception, with the addition of May 27th and the November 11th meeting having a 6 o'clock regular meeting time added at this time.
You repeat your amendment again?
So I'm going to amend the original to say that we will accept these dates for 2019 City Council meetings with the addition of a 6 p.m. start on May 27th and a 6 p.m. start on November 11th.
All right. Get a second?
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Discussion? Ms. Snyder?
Why? If you want the town to come after you for trying to hold a meeting on these 2 days, go for it. You'll regret it.
Any further discussion?
Oh.
I don't think... Ms. Green?
Well, if what I remember in the past, we've come to this, and as the meeting day approached, we changed it ahead of time to another date. And that's what I was trying to say.
That's right.
I don't know, right now what I'm going to be doing May 30th, and so I think if we leave these in and when we get closer, we are going to change them. And we'll give enough time for the public to know that we're changing them. That's all I'm saying, it's just...
I understand.
Okay.
Let me ask the city attorney, if we establish these 2 dates as a meeting dates and we get closer to them, can we move those dates?
That's what we've done in the past, and I believe that that's the correct actual
That's the
procedure.
correct procedures, okay.
Then there are already set regular meetings. We simply are adjusting the time or date or location,
Okay.
which we have the right to do.
As
ahead of
opposed to being a special meeting, yes, all right, that makes sense.
So, in order for me to understand, basically, the original motion and the amended motion are the same because it's following the schedule.
It's adding a 6 p.m. start date for May 27th and November the 11th meeting date.
Don't they always start at 6?
We don't have these as meetings. They're just noted, the Veterans Day and Memorial Day.
I was interpreting it differently, thank you.
So,
Okay.
all right.
It's clear as mud.
So basically, what the amendment is, what we're going to be discussing is making the May 27th Memorial Day a meeting date and November the 11th a Veteran Day a meeting date starting at 6 p.m.
Yes.
With the understanding that that can be changed later on, if need be.
Or eliminate.
Or eliminated.
Yeah.
Or eliminated. Okay. Does everybody understand?
That-
Okay, you have a discussion?
In view of our past history of waiting until the last minute, so to speak, to make changes or updates or whatever, I would highly suggest if you want to go that way, by March 25th, we have to make a decision on May 27th, and by August 26th, we have to make a decision on November 11th.
Do you want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion that we have a time frame
And
Of
do you
those
want to
dates.
repeat your time frame again?
of those frames. By March 25th, we have to make a decision on if we're going to meet or not on Memorial Day. And by August 26th, we have to make a decision if we're going to meet or not on Veterans Day.
All right, any discussion on that amendment? Do I have a second?
I'll second that. I mean, it's one way or the other, so...
Okay, any discussion? Mr. Thomas?
The lead time is far too long. That's like...
What?
That's 2 months.
2 months.
I could go with 1 month, April 22nd.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll make an amendment to,
No, we've got, let's deal with what we've got right now.
If you want me to change my dates, I will.
No, we're going to deal with this real quick here. Is there any further discussion on that amendment? Okay, all those in favor of that amendment signify by saying aye.
Which amendment?
That amendment of
Okay.
yours that makes establish the dates of,
By March 25th for Memorial Day, by August 26th regarding Veterans Day.
okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Motion fails.
It's okay, my point was
Okay,
made.
we are back to the original amendment, I think,
Right.
which is that we accept Memorial Day and Veterans Day meeting at 6 p.m. Mr. Thomas.
I don't think that was the original
That's the
motion.
amendment.
I think that's another amendment.
That's the amendment.
Right, okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
The chart I have does not have a start time for the August 22nd date, actual meeting. It has for the budget meeting. I think
August
you should-
22nd?
Actually,
April
not-
22nd.
April 22nd? Oh, you are correct.
Don't the meetings always start at 6?
Should be in here, though, if we're going to adopt this as
None of them
for your
have 6.
schedule.
April
Oh.
26th.
None of the budgets have 20.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
the
on
May
there.
13th doesn't.
None of them.
Yeah.
No budgets have a 6 o'clock.
They have a
Oh, it's
5:15. It's over here.
You're correct. All right.
It's the same thing for the 23rd of August, or September, sorry.
September 23rd.
When people talk off to the side, I can't.
All right, let me refer, we've got a motion right now, I think we're going to have to redo this, or we're going to have to add, let's vote, let's keep this with the amendment that we have, and then we'll come back and amend this one more time, I think, with, or would we
I'll
take, we
withdraw
can withdraw your amendment? Okay. Who'd second that amendment?
Terry?
Terry, you withdraw your amendment?
I'll take it back.
Second? All right. You want to rephrase your amendment?
I will. All right,
Okay.
so I suggest on this, on my original amended, that we accept the dates as is for 2019 city council meetings with the addition of a 6 p.m. start time on the April 22nd meeting, a 6 p.m. start time on the May 27th meeting, a 6 p.m. start time on the September 23rd meeting, and a 6 p.m. start time on the November 11th meeting.
All right.
Second.
Who's second?
Melissa?
Melissa, all right. Discussion? Ms. Green, Ms. Snyder?
I thought we were doing a motion to put Memorial Day and Veterans Day in the meeting.
That is the amendment.
No, that was just making it a start time of 6. We didn't vote yet on making it part of the schedule. Those two.
That's what we're going to vote on.
Well, that included 2 other things. Why don't we just start from
Ms.
scratch?
Harmon?
I'm sorry. If it's on this list, it's
No,
just because it's highlighted in yellow, but it's still written, is that a...
it doesn't say meeting. It's just saying that's what the day is.
I think what your amendment needs to be is a 6 p.m. start on a meeting on the May 27th with 6 p.m. start date.
Okay, do you want me to amend it one more time
Mr. McClung?
by voice?
Withdraw it and
I have
start
nothing to
again.
do with it.
There was
Yes,
no
okay.
second on this last motion.
Mr. McClung did,
I thought
that's all
Melissa
right.
did.
Oh, I'm sorry, Melissa did.
Oh, Melissa, I'm sorry, you're right.
Okay, I'll withdraw.
Okay,
I
we'll
will
try this one more time.
Okay. So I make a motion that we accept this list for the 2019 city council meetings with the addition of adding a 6 p.m. start date for the April 22nd meeting, noting the May 27th date is also a meeting that will begin at 6 p.m., in addition of the September 23rd meeting having a 6 p.m. start date, in addition on the November 11th of being an official meeting beginning at 6 p.m.
All right, now do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Ms. Snyder.
So in a nutshell, what we're saying is, we're going to go ahead and put on our schedule for anybody and everybody who looks at our city website that we're going to disregard our veterans and meet on Memorial Day and Veterans Day unless perchance sometime prior to the meeting we decide to cancel the meeting. Is this right?
We will note on the website that this will be the dates of the meetings.
So what I've just said is right. We are going to let everybody know, who looks at the schedule, that we are going to disregard our veterans and hold council meetings.
We will note on the website that these will be the times of the meetings and dates of the meetings. Any further discussion? Mr. Meyer?
And dates can change.
Absolutely.
That could be noted on the website as well.
If it's noted, fine, but it won't be.
Any dates will be noted, yes.
Sure.
Yeah, any change dates, correct. Any further discussion? All right. Motion is that make April 26th start date 6 p.m. Note that on May 27th we'll be meeting at 6 p.m. Meeting on September 23rd at 6 p.m. And November the 11th will be a meeting starting at 6 p.m. No further discussion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No?
All right. 5-1. All right. Need a motion for discussion or motion for election of a...
Mr. Mayor?
Pro Tem, yes.
Don't we still have to pass the motion to approve the meeting schedule?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. That was
That was an amendment.
the amendment. All right. All those, we got a motion to now approve the meeting as submitted.
The amended
Meeting
schedule.
as scheduled.
The amended meeting?
So, any further discussion on that?
Is that the amended meeting as scheduled?
That is the meeting that was been submitted to us. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
All right. Thank you, Mr. McClung. All right, that brings us now down to item number 2. Selection of Mayor Pro Tem for 2019.
So moved.
Get them.
Oh, I move that we elect a pro tem mayor for
You
2019.
want to nominate somebody?
Oh, no, I just want to discuss it.
You asked for a motion to discuss.
All right. Well, motion and a nomination, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm moving to discuss
Okay.
the pro tem for 2019.
All right, get a second.
I'll second that.
All right. And what we need is someone to sit in case when I'm absent, to sit in to act as chair on there. So, Ms. Snyder.
Bob, would you be interested this time?
I would be interested in that, yes.
Okay, I would nominate Bob to sit in this time.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of Mr. Thomas being Mayor Pro Tem for 2019, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Brings us up to the rules of procedure for 2019. Mr. Thomas.
I move to discuss rules of procedure for 2019.
Second.
All right. Mr. Thomas.
I move that the council adopt the pocket guide to parliamentary procedure as the council's rules of procedure, daily use, and Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised as the parliamentary authority, which means it is a backup if the answers are not ever found in this little pamphlet.
Second.
All right, any other discussion? Ms. Snyder?
I'm missing my one paper. Okay, so you're suggesting that we use both of them?
This pocket guide suggests that you have to have a parliamentary authority to back you up when there are questions or things that are not addressed in this little pamphlet.
Okay, so the workshop that we had, whatever you want to call it, okay, when they were talking about that, what you're saying is you totally agree with the way the little one works Because we would always have to, okay. I'm having a few problems with it. There's a couple, like I said, apparently I left my paper at home. There's a couple places in there that would make it more a decision of the mayor rather than the council. And I think the whole point of having a council was so that decisions of impact could not be handled by only one person. It would be a group decision,
another one.
which is a safety and security net. That's my only problem with this. This had some really, really good stuff, but there were a couple of points in there that really has me thinking about it. I don't know what we did.
Why are we passing it?
Just pass it here, please.
This is,
Anyway,
this
that's,
is the...
it's without my sheet in front of me, I don't know where I put it. That's my only concern. When it comes to major decisions, it should be a group decision, not a one person. No offense, Paige.
Ms. Grant?
What did we use last year? Because I came on after you.
Robert's Rules of Order.
What Bob suggested now?
Just that.
Just that.
An abridged version
Okay.
of this.
Mr. Thomas?
I don't know anywhere in here that it authorizes the mayor to make a decision.
There were a couple of places where that's where it would come down to.
Are you mixing up?
Probably.
I sent the mayor some concerns about this pamphlet, and I think he forwarded that to everybody.
Okay, I might be swapping with
This is the one that gives a lot more power to the mayor.
Let me look for one quick second. That's probably the one I was thinking of. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I take back my comment. I got my books mixed up.
Yes, something simple.
All right, any further discussion? The motion is that we use the Market Guide to Parliamentary Procedures with Robert Rules of Order newly revised. It's back up. Is that correct?
Parliamentary authority.
Right.
Parliamentary authority. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. That brings us to Planning Commission's request to reduce the number of members.
Motion to discuss.
Second.
Okay. Who wants to start off? Mr. McClung?
Just briefly, just everything that I've heard about it and from the commissioners, and that it would just, as difficult as it is to keep those positions filled, that it seems to make a lot of sense.
Mr. Thomas?
I think that you're kind of mixing eggs and chickens or whatever there. It's hard to fill them, but a commission represents its membership, and the membership of our commissions are the citizens, and they need a much, to have the possibility that 3 people on a commission who happen to think alike would make all those decisions for that commission. I think the citizens deserve broader representation. If there is a problem finding members, that's something that the council should address, but not by reducing membership.
A membership of 5.
Instead of 7.
Right. I'm suggesting that we stick with 7.
Ms. Grant?
7,
I too, like Bob, like the 7. I understand the problems that the Planning Commission is having, keeping people. I do want to say something, and it reflects back on me too. Over the years, the Planning Commission, and we've had great people on it, and they've worked really hard at a lot of things, and they've come to the City Council, and a lot of times they've been horribly disrespected. Their recommendations have just been too... And I remember we lost 2 chairs in a row just because of how they were treated. And so I would like, as a body, to really, us take a look at it and start working with these people. I'm understanding, am I correct on this, Tom, that it would still take 4 votes to pass something, or would it be 3?
Take 4.
It would
There were
take
5?
4.
With present, it's 7 members.
If there were 5?
No, if it's 5, it would take 3.
Okay.
It's a majority. Are you finished?
No.
With your comments?
I'm not against what Mr. Buford has suggested, because I have great respect for him and his abilities, and I think he sees this as a good thing. I wonder if would you be willing, Tom, if we tabled this for like to March, and just to see if we could get 2 more commissioners? And if not, then I'm ready to vote for the 5.
Ms. Snyder?
We really need to think hard about this desire to move to 5 just because it's hard to get people. Our people that we represent in town are real unhappy right now in regards to planning and planning commissioners being on council. And because right now, last year, even though Tom was only an appointment, a temporary one, he was on and Melissa was on.
No, I wasn't.
Last year,
No, I was not on.
here,
Oh, yeah, but I wasn't on the planning commission.
here, people were upset about that because every time it came to the B&B vote, we had planning commissioners. Well, they've also been saying the same thing in regards to the planning commission, because of the amount of lodging owners and stuff that are on there. And I've tried to point out before, this is a small town. On council, you're going to have lodging and shops and everything else because we're a small little town. We don't have a big base. In view of what our base is, we need to keep that number up to 7, because then you're lowering it down and making it easier in the eyes of an awful lot of people to vote the way you handful of lodging people, or in our case, shop people, the way they want it. If you have 7, that makes it a much fairer open play, rather than narrowing it down to nothing but dog owners are going to vote on dogs. See what I'm saying? This is the problem. You have a much bigger mix of people if you go ahead and keep it at 7. At 5, you're risking an awful lot of animosity and problems.
Madam Clerk, do you remember when we changed it from 5 to 7? Off the top of your head?
No, but it's easy to find out.
All right. Ms. Green?
No disrespect, Mickey, but on the last planning commission, I think Susan is the only lodging, and before that, I was on with Susan, and I think just Susan and I were the only lodging, and I don't remember any problems other than a couple of people were upset because of the B&B stuff. But if we were restaurateurs on there, we'd have the restaurateurs.
That's what I'm saying. This is a small
I'm
town.
sorry.
We're limited. They were complaining about the
Nikki, hold on, just a
here,
moment.
not there.
Just a minute. Let's,
That's been in the past.
Ms. Harmon?
Okay, so just kind of step me through it, Mr. Mayor, real quick, as far as the procedure goes. City council, sitting city council accepts an application and they nominate, correct?
Correct.
For planning commission. So whether or not it doesn't really matter who applies. If you decided you didn't want to, if city council decided they didn't want to nominate any of those applications, they have the right to do that, correct?
I nominate, and y'all approve.
Okay, but you have the right to not nominate or to nominate, correct? So at any point, if the argument is that we would end up having all lodging or all restaurant or all business people on that particular commission, as far as applicants that were all of one variety or the other, you would be able to look at that and in your mind say, maybe this isn't the correct mix, because you're viewing them prior to them being nominated.
Correct.
So, I guess in my mind, I would look at what Nikki said and say, I would feel that you would look at that prior to, and there wouldn't necessarily be an instance of us having 7 lodging people sitting on planning, or 7 restaurant, or an overwhelming sway one way or the other that would affect planning.
And ultimately, the council approves too.
Correct.
So there's a double safeguard. Ms. Snyder?
Well, except that that's you, and we can pretty much trust you. What happens in 4 years? That's the problem. If, say, our next mayor is a lodging owner, he's going to go ahead and do all he can. Or, I mean, it's possible, okay?
That's an assumption.
Right, and so is yours. Because invariably, the mayor will not nominate someone who is of questionable character, doesn't matter what the background is. Point being, the town has been having a problem, the planning and with council in regards to who's on there. Because we've had so much of the lodging stuff going on. And all I'm saying is, keep things cleaner and safer, leave it at 7. Just because it's not easy to get 7, and keep in mind, I've been on planning 3 or 4 times. It's been a while, but I've been on there 3 or 4 times. But you need to keep it clean and safe, not just easy.
Ms. Green?
Well, while we're talking about this, Ms. Harmon basically resigned from planning and said she wasn't going to go back. So now we're down to 4 on the planning commission. Is it possible during this discussion that we can put someone from the city council like we normally do?
Separate issue. Separate issue, and we'd really need to put it on the agenda for the next time.
And she's still officially on it.
No, she's not.
Ann, what did you, when...
It appears that the quorum of 4 was established in 1980 with ordinance number 1103.
So that's when it went from 5 to 7?
Well, I don't know that it was ever 5. I'm just looking at...
It was at one point, so I do remember that. Ms. Green?
If we were to go back to 5 and with a quorum of 3, is that, and this would be for Tim, is that going to open us up for some lawsuits on people that didn't get something because 3 people voted for it and there was only 5 people on the commission? Are we opening ourselves up if we change this?
Well, you'd have to reduce the number that it takes to pass to 3.
Right.
And at that point, no, we would not be exposed to additional litigation. You would just be restricting the amount of discussion that would be had at the table and the difference of potential opinion that having a larger number qualifies for. The one solution, and please don't take it that I'm trying to butt into your discussion and take over as city attorney, but you could also consider the option of 6 as opposed to 7 or 5, in which then the majority would be of 4 still, and it would allow for one less person to be wrangled into a position at a time.
Mr. Meyer?
Whatever the planning commission comes up with and suggests to council to act upon, it's the council that decides, right? So if no matter what the planning commission does, the ultimate choice, the action is done by the elected officials in the council, not the members of the commission. So the number on the commission, I don't think is, well, it can lean one way or another, but ultimately, the responsibility is the city council, isn't it?
For who's on the council, that's correct. Remember, council members, please, the issue here isn't really on who's there and who's not. The issue is trying to make sure we have a quorum. Having 5 members on the planning commission would require 3 for a quorum. There's times when we may not have a quorum. Right now, we have 4 people on the city council, or on the planning commission. We have 3 vacancies. If one of those people are sick, then that means there won't be a quorum and no business will be able to be done. And that's been done in the past, and we've had issues with not being able to have any meetings because there hadn't been a quorum. And sometimes it's because we haven't been able to get enough people on the commission. So that's really the reason for putting it from 5, reducing it back down to 5 members. And it was 5 members at one point. I think we went up to 7 because possibly, as Mr. Thomas said, we wanted more members involved. But if we're having time getting a quorum, then that's an issue. Then we don't have any business, we don't even have a planning commission to do anything. And that hurts the whole town. So keep that in mind. Mr. Weaver?
To ultimately answer your question, no, everything doesn't come to the council. Anything that is approved by the planning commission is not got reviewed before the council. And it is approved by the planning commission, and therefore would be approved by 3 individuals on the commission if it is a commission of 5.
Okay.
So anything that is disapproved has the right of appeal, but it has to have an appeal filed by the losing party.
I see.
Ms. Harmon?
Do we have any other commissions that have 5 members as opposed to 7?
No.
I think are they all 7?
They're all 7 at this
I
time?
believe so. Ms. Snyder?
When it comes to the various commissions, Harry, invariably council goes along with what they suggest because we don't have the in-depth background knowledge that the commissions do. So we tend to, if they suggest we do this or that, we tend to just agree to it. That can be a problem. And I have no problem dropping to 6, but not 5. That's dangerous.
It still won't get back to the quorum issue. It's not a matter of that. It matters time to establish a quorum.
Keep it at 4.
So it should be either 5 or 7. All right,
I
Ms.
can
Green?
understand the quorum.
At the next meeting, if it's put on the agenda, can we put a city council member on there for now?
Yes.
And I'm not against exploring this. I would like to just table this suggestion till our first meeting in March and try, I know a couple of people I'm going to approach I think would be good. And just see if we can find any. If not, I'm willing to vote for the 5.
Make a motion to move to table till the first meeting in March.
I move to table the planning commission request to reduce the number of members to 5 until the first meeting in March, which would be March 11th.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. Thank you. That brings us to our next item is discussion of food trucks. Ms. Snyder?
Motion to discuss.
Okay. Did you get a second?
Second.
All right. Ms. Snyder?
I would ask Victor to come back up to the mic, please. Okay, we've had a couple of problems in regards to the lottery and stuff. Victor had some pretty good ideas. Wait a minute. Sorry, it's the weather. I would like him to explain in a little more detail, if you would, the Highway 62 section, those zones, and what you as a food truck person can see as what's needed, or the changes that you think could be made.
Okay, well, I already stated, I think that a private business owner in a commercial zone should be allowed to operate a secondary business, whether it is a food truck or whatever they prefer.
Well, be specific on that part, if you would.
Okay, the gentleman at the quilt shop, he has his food truck there. He's created a nice ambiance there. He's getting people to pull in there. from what I've noticed. But now, you have the Homestead Antique that won the lottery this year that has until May to rightfully put a truck in that location, but in the same sense, cut this gentleman out because he didn't win the lottery or it was second. That's what the lottery was put there for, and I understand that, but the 62 is the largest stretch of running highway in our city, and I would like to see, maybe not so divided of just one truck. I thought originally we had talked there was two trucks location on that highway. And I thought originally we talked it was from the east end to 23 south, and the second was from 23 south to the west end. I thought that's how it was stated, but I'm not for sure. Maybe you know, Ann, or...
It's 2 on Highway 62 and 1 on 23 south.
Okay, so what is the issue with the gentleman not getting the lottery ticket when the other person did?
2 other people won. He will be the third. If neither of the first 2 operate, he has first dibs on
Setting up.
the lottery.
Do you know who the people are besides the other one?
Let's see.
Yes, they submitted their application.
Hobbies, and I don't have the file.
Yeah.
It was the old Fockers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
There's one, and the other
Hobbies.
was the old Johnny Russell Music Show.
Hobbies and Hertz. Yeah.
What's Johnny Russell?
Yeah.
They're on 23 South where the coffee place is.
That's its own spacing. From 23 to the outside of the south side of town is allotted for 1 truck now.
Yes.
2 on 63 on 62, 1 from Center Street to Euphoria Street, I believe, which that only allots the 4 trucks. Where's the 5th location?
I wish I had brought the file, Victor. I don't remember who the second.
It doesn't matter, does it?
I think the goal really is more on 62.
I think my goal here is if you own the land, you should be able to operate that secondary business. That would protect the people that are already have got the lottery. If you own that land, you should be able to do what you want on it.
Without it being counted?
All right. Ms.
I
Green?
wasn't here when all this went, so I don't totally understand all that and don't, the lottery. What kind of has bothered me is we've restricted to a certain number, which I like. The quilt shop guy he's correct, has built a very nice business, an ambiance, he's employed someone. And I just find it, why are we only allowing somebody a chance for 1 year instead of nurturing the ones that come and try to make a business, maybe become residents of our town. And then when one of them decides to leave, it opens up. I mean, kind of like we have liquor licenses, we only have so many in town. Well, yes, Ann, there are people that can't get a liquor license because there's a number. I'm just saying, I don't know why we don't have something that's permanent for each one. If Hobbies and Homestead won this year, then I think they should have it until they're ready not to have it.
Ms. Harmon?
I just have a question. Obviously, I wasn't here involved in the whole put together of the food truck thing either. But my question really is, based on the ones that are there right now or that won the lottery, it's a year term, correct, that they win that lottery for? And do we have anyone who didn't do something with that license? So did anyone not actually put a truck on the spot where they said they would put a truck? Did they only operate it for a short period of time? And are there any stipulations in the food lottery that prevent someone, if they didn't take advantage of that license, to not apply the next year?
No. To your last question, no.
Okay, so then the first question, did we have anyone who won the lottery but did nothing with that license?
No.
No.
Okay, so they were all occupied on a regular basis?
The ones that applied, yes.
Okay.
Mr. McClung?
We're getting off track here. The gentleman up at the quilt shop, he knew what the ground rules were when he got into it. And if he went to an excess, that's just the way it is, and he is trying to come up with another avenue to do something. So, that's his prerogative. But I don't want to try and open this up into a bigger can of worms than what it already is. And if you start trying to make it where a person can do something on their property, pretty soon you'll have them setting up tents. And then it's just, you got to be real careful of the direction you go. So, it's set up the way it is. If you want to change something, then bring it in a motion to try and change the ordinance, but I'm not for it.
Mr. Meyer?
Last year at Pine Mountain, there were vendors and food vendors and...
Those are special events.
Is that a special event? Okay.
Okay. Ms. Snyder?
Okay, so if the man who has the quilt shop and that little food truck that he's had there for a couple of years now, I know we talked about it at the end of the last couple meetings in regards to since he didn't win the lottery, he was going to go ahead and set it up as a permanent business, or I've been told to look into it, which is going to cost a whole lot of money. As long as he's got his permits and stuff, that makes it a legal second business, like what Victor is saying, but it's also a food truck. Will this food truck count, seeing as it's not part of the lottery?
It's not a food truck anymore.
Yep.
It's not a food truck anymore.
Just accept
You mean
it's not qualifying as a food
Okay,
truck.
that's what I'm asking. Okay, so this would not, because it's private, it would not count as a food truck.
That's
Okay.
the issue.
Then the question is, I don't know. Victor, explain better on how many could go on 62? In your opinion?
In my opinion, I think 2 to 3 max. I honestly do. This is, when I started doing food trucks and started fighting this, 4 or 5 years ago? I did that for myself and for my business. Fortunately, you guys have been diligent to work with me and let me get my designated area that I originally applied for. I'm very grateful for that. If Soup Guy's gonna underskirt it or whatever he has to do to make it a permanent truck, then that's really not an issue anymore. The person that wins the lottery, he did know that it isn't, as I know that if it's not a food truck owner, in that case, the owner is the food truck owner of the land, but it is up to the private landowner to apply for the permit in the lottery,
Right.
and then it's up to
the
food truck to establish that.
Okay, but you think we could actually get, at the most, 3 on the 62 area?
I mean, yeah,
Do you
could
think
put
we
10 there, but
we
it's...
should up it to 3 from 2 in view of...
I do not.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
I like our system that we have. Food trucks are a unique thing for our quaint small
Yeah,
town.
we don't want to be Fayetteville.
We don't want to be Fayetteville. I can tell you from personal experience, what I set out to do was late night food for the bar crowd. It's worked out well for me. It hasn't worked out well enough where I think you could put 2 or 3 trucks downtown. I think it wouldn't be worth me doing anymore.
Okay.
And that's just my
So
opinion.
after this couple of years that you've been doing it, you think everything is set fine?
I do like the system that is in place.
Okay.
My only regard was a private landowner that was in the previous laws.
Should be able
I
to.
wish that wouldn't have got taken out.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Green?
I just want to ask Victor, do you like the lottery method?
For me, the lottery method is good to limit the number of trucks in the city of Eureka. 62 highway, the locationing is odd, but then again, where I set my truck up on Center Street, the location it's off the beaten path. I feel that it's up to me, the food truck, to bring that ambiance there, to bring the customers there. And once people know that you're there and you're creating a good quality product, then I don't think you're...
What I'm asking is if you had other people applying and you lost, would that be devastating to you and you had to move?
Well, I'd either have to move to a lottery spot, but in my location, it's not me applying, it's the private landowner. So if he quits applying, there's really nothing I can do about that.
I guess what I'm trying to ask, I mentioned, and I may be way out of my bounds about, I find the lottery, when people come in and they invest and they really try to start a business like you had, I would hate after a year you're like lost to somebody else. That would kind of, because you've worked really hard.
Yes, I mean, that would definitely be detrimental to my business,
I guess,
for sure.
And I'm not saying I'm trying to change this, it's just something that has kind of bothered me about this lottery system.
For me, the setup of the lottery is what I asked for 3 years ago, the same exact spot I asked for. Nothing has changed in my day-to-day game plan of the lottery.
But it could.
Yeah, it could if you change the location. If you don't change the location, then the only thing that can change is from me and the private landowner.
But wonder if somebody, are you just the only one that can be...
There's only one truck per location in the lottery.
Okay.
From Center Street to Euphoria or whatever it is.
But if someone else applied...
Someone else could apply and get it, but in that zone, there's a B&B and a closed-down antique store, so who's going to apply?
But if they did, I mean, what I'm asking, that would be devastating to you.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I'm saying. I wasn't here for the lottery and I didn't understand it. I just hate to see when people invest and are working hard that after a year they could be gone. I mean... Me
too. It took me 4 years of coming to these meetings to get to where I'm at today, so I really don't want to foresee pushing this to something that I could lose in.
Okay. Thank you, Victor.
Ms. Harmon.
I just need a clarification on exactly what we're talking about. I've heard, are we talking about possibly adding number of people eligible for the lottery? Are we talking about whether or not somebody can keep doing their truck after a year? Are we talking about, I mean, this has just gone all over the place, so I just need a clarification to exactly...
There hadn't been any motion made, it's just the motion was discussion of the food truck lottery.
Okay, so
it is wide open.
Okay, I guess I was trying to figure out what the main topic was.
I don't think we have one.
Okay.
Well, it all
Food truck
came about because one of our regular guys lost.
I understand.
It's selling season, and so we just wanted to discuss to see if we wanted to do changes. That's all that was.
Mr. Thomas?
Any council person that wants to discuss changing the ordinance could add it to the agenda during agenda setting time. The biggest complaint that I hear from people in this town is you do not enforce your ordinances. And, until this ordinance is changed, I agree with Terry. I think it needs to be enforced.
I concur.
What? I don't think there's a question on that, and there's not a question about it being not enforced at this point in time. There's not a question of it not being enforced.
No.
I think the question was whether or not it needs to be changed.
Right.
And we discussed that, and, Ms. Snyder and Ms. Green both brought it up again to discuss this again, so
And it
this is
sounds
where we are.
like we're doing good, so.
Any further discussion? Mr. Meyer?
I don't think we should change the ordinance until lottery time comes up again, because those people that won the lottery for this season, expected a certain exclusive right to doing it, so.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you could put an effective date.
Are there any further discussion?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victor.
All right, hearing none. Moving on to discussion of aggregate as the option for the sidewalks.
Move to discuss. Do it right. I make a motion to discuss.
Second.
Yeah.
Oh, I make a motion to discuss adding aggregate as an option for the sidewalk surfaces.
Second.
All right. Ms. Snyder, you want to take off?
Sure. 10 years ago, this was a 6-month argument, of which 3 of us are very well aware. Okay, what Bob just said a little while ago about things being taken care of properly, I kept fighting 10 years ago for aggregate because it's what was affordable and historical for Eureka Springs. Most shop owners, business owners, which makes them the property owner and therefore responsible for the sidewalk, cannot afford the limestone. It's very difficult to afford the printed concrete to look like limestone. And historicness seemed to be lost on council 10 years ago. The aggregate that's right over here on Benton Street, that sidewalk going up Benton at Benton, Maine, was laid at the same time as the limestone down here. The same time. It's still in perfect condition. There's nothing wrong with it. It's historical. It's as old as the limestone, and it's affordable. And it doesn't break and do weird things like other stuff does. It's historical. Almost every town in the country has at some point aggregate somewhere in their town. What we would like to do so we can actually get our sidewalks safe again after all these years of people not complying because they can't afford to, they're not making them and everything else, we would like to add aggregate to the list in the ordinance in regards to limestone and printed concrete. This gives them a third option that is much more affordable and just as historic. That's what this is for.
Ms. Green?
Well, maybe I'm wrong, but I remember being on the HDC and writing that ordinance, and aggregate was part of the ordinance. Did it get, it wasn't?
It is not in code.
Okay, it got changed. Well, aggregate in certain cases is historic, so I'm in agreement with Ms. Schneider that it should probably be put in there. Also, we have, what was put in there, if I'm correct, is cement with stamping to look like limestone.
Printed concrete.
And that is not an expensive, not as much as you think, Mickey. It's reasonable. I'm not against putting aggregate in where aggregate was. I mean, aggregate's all over the city.
Yeah.
Ms. Harmon?
I went through some of the, I guess, the information on the Muni Code site. What ordinance are we talking about that refers to this? Because I did read information that indicated that there was a certain requirement on the historic loop and there was a certain requirement outside of the historic. So I just need to know what ordinance we're talking about so I can make sure that I read.
Yeah, I don't remember the number, but we're talking the historic loop.
You're only, right now, you're just talking historic loop.
Right now, yes.
Okay.
Well, if we can combine them and do them all at one time, that's fine.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because what I read,
I don't, I remember the historic part of it.
I don't have a book, so.
It doesn't split out.
That's what
I don't remember it splitting out.
No. And,
Look under,
you know,
the city period.
when an ordinance is passed, it goes into the code book. So what's in the code book is where we go, not to a specific ordinance. So,
But that's fine. I would just like to know what that, what.
Well, I can remember it being split, but
Streets.
things get changed.
Well, that's why I'm
Or
asking
concrete.
for a reference.
well, What is that, Bob? What's the
Ordinance
number?
number 2116, which refers to Section 9, or Chapter 9 of the code.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
Can you pass that down and let me read that?
Sidewalks outside.
This is ordinance 2116, and it basically, I think what we're talking about, sidewalks within the historic districts may also be poured concrete.
That's what I'm saying. There's two indications of...
Areas where limestone exists, existing sidewalks, but if sidewalks not repaired, shall be replaced with either limestone or imprinted or tinted concrete. That's within the historic district.
Okay, and then there's another section that indicates outside, correct? Which is the poured concrete.
Correct.
Outside.
Is that how it's stated?
It
Is
says shall
outside?
be concrete. Sidewalks outside the historic district, if a public sidewalk or portion thereof, et cetera, shall be concrete.
And the historic district is the city limits 1970.
Well, that's fine. I'm just saying if we're doing something, we should look at all of it.
Absolutely.
As opposed to just a portion of it and make sure that we address the correct area that we're talking about if it's split in two.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the exception of new, it was very specific. It does not include aggregate.
In the historic district.
Correct.
Okay. All right, further discussion? Ms. Snyder?
I would like to make a motion that we add aggregate to our code in regards to a surface to be used for sidewalks within the historic district.
Replacement?
Replacement.
Ms. Harmon? Will I get a second?
Is this for discussion?
No, this is, Mickey is making a motion to add aggregate to the code
As replacement.
as a replacement material. I need a second.
If I don't second it, can we...
Motion dies.
I'll second it.
All right, Mr. Tom, now we're open for discussion on it.
Okay, now we can, okay. That's all I want.
Ms. Green?
In our historic district, the commission came up with about 10 years ago where there is limestone. We gave them the option of doing the printed. Where there wasn't limestone, and I could be really wrong on this, we allowed aggregate as a replacement.
No.
We did? No. Okay.
That's what this motion is for.
I think that we're really barking up a bad tree with the historic district to add aggregate where there is limestone. We're taking away some of the integrity of the historic district, and we're losing the historic district inch by inch every year. And, I mean, I understand the expense. Lord knows, and I'm probably going to get a lot of people mad at me for this. But that's what we went through, and we came up with the printed limestone as an alternative. It was a much, much, much cheaper alternative, but I'm just really afraid of going there, and we're just losing more and more of the historic district and the integrity of it.
Snyder?
I'm a big fighter for keeping our historicness, but like I said, aggregate is as old and as historic as limestone. And what we're looking at right now in regards to our sidewalks, especially our limestone, is no one can afford it. And since it's the property owners, not the city, who has to replace it, if you can't afford to replace your limestone with limestone or even the printed concrete, then you end up with sidewalks like this that we have visitors tripping and falling and hurting themselves as well as our local people. And I have, with my shop across the street years ago, actually bandaged up people who have fallen before this got replaced. I know how badly it can happen. Aggregate is affordable, is historic, and if it's not on the list, it sure as heck should be. But it's something that will get our sidewalks fixed to be safe again while staying in a proper historic mode.
Ms. Harmon?
I don't have an issue with aggregate. My only issue is that I would like to do some homework on it, and I've heard different responses already as to what is and what isn't in the code. And I would say that tonight is probably not the best night to vote before everybody has a chance to educate themselves on exactly what is there and what isn't there.
I think there's several issues involved here. Mr. Thomas, you haven't spoken yet. Would you like to address
I would like
the
to
issue?
ask Mr. McClung a question. If you're not an expert, you don't feel bad about it. Concrete, or aggregate is concrete with rocks in it, correct? Is it that much cheaper?
Well, your printed concrete is more expensive because it takes a certain mix and you got to come in with the stamps and
Right.
and do all that. It's more labor intensive. Aggregate is a little bit more expensive than flat work because you've got to add it in there and get your surface even, and so it takes a little more than just simple flat work and a broom finish.
It's just exposed aggregate.
But yeah, it's exposed aggregate.
Okay.
So, it'd be a little cheaper than imprinted. It's not the same as a broom finish, which would be your least expensive.
To an average homeowner in the historic district, would it be a significant savings, aggregate versus concrete?
Probably not.
I wouldn't think so either.
Thank you.
I'd like to point out, I really think, we've been talking about experts in our commissions. We have the HDC, and I think this is an issue that I would recommend that we defer this to the HDC for their recommendation, since they are the experts on this issue, and see what their feelings are, and have them come back and report back to us to make this a deal.
Motion?
Now, I can take a motion to defer this refer it back to the planning
I'll make a
commission
motion
to
that we
defer it.
defer my motion until we hear from HDC.
I'll second that.
Okay. I think that's an appropriate motion. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, so moved. That brings us up to our unfinished business. It's ordinance number 2274, collection of expenditures for cleanup amendment. Get a motion to discuss.
I move that we discuss ordinance number 2274, collection of the expenditures for cleanup.
Second.
All right.
Eventually.
Anybody want to lead off on this?
I got a question.
Okay.
Have we had any readings yet? It's been too long that I can't recall. We've had one
Madam
reading.
Clerk, I believe, we had one reading?
It says second reading.
Did we need any amendments or anything? Did we discuss anything?
The amendments are underlined in the bottom of the page
And in the title.
and in the title.
Then I would like to go ahead and make a motion that we suspend the rules and read ordinance number 2274 by title only, which refers to the amendments that we need for this ordinance. Would that be sufficient?
Accepting the amendment first and then?
Probably the appropriate, Mr. McClung, would be
Yes, sir.
to approve it on its second reading and then amend it after the second reading, after doing it by title only.
Okay. I would change that, and I would like to suspend the rules and read ordinance number 2274 by title only.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Mr. Thomas?
I have a question for the city attorney. The amendment, the paragraph at the bottom of the first page there, which speaks to a violation of city code regardless if such violation is found in the title of this municipal code. So this one, the amendment actually is referring to chapter 5, but it would also cover chapter 9 where the sidewalks are, correct?
That is the expectation, yes.
And then is there any other sections in the code that would be covered by this?
The way it is written, it would cover any section that might be now or in the future amended.
And I would make this kind of a silly question, but I want to, so if someone violates a speeding ordinance in the city, have they violated a city code, would that then come under this?
I suppose you could make that argument, but there's a separate punishment already dictated for violating the careless driving statute of our code. So I would think that would be what would be normally used.
In collection, too.
Yeah.
This is referring to collection of
And then
those.
this would be for collection. The city court would be or the district court would be the collecting agent for a fine, and they would not use this method.
Okay, but as written, basically it says to the citizens tonight, any violation of any code would result in could result in implementation of ordinance number 2274.
By the most broad reading, yes.
Pardon?
By the most broad reading, yes.
I've switched back to my hearing aids, but the sound in this room is just incredibly bad for hearing impaired people, and the system is not working tonight.
All right, now you do realize, Mr. Thomas, that ahead of this says that we will expend the funds against the real property as determined at a public hearing before the city council. So before any of this goes, any collections or anything, it's going to come before the city council for a hearing.
Oh, I have no problem with that, and I understand.
So there's not going to be just any ramification that the building inspector is going to go out and issue a violation, and then all of a sudden it's going to be found and deemed a violation of this and taken to court.
I understand that, but if I would just like the way it's written to reflect the intent of the ordinance.
Okay, I just want to make sure that you're aware of that.
Oh, all right.
Okay. So you're not happy with the way that it's written?
Not that it covers any violation of city code, no.
Would you like to amend this and put in Section 5 and Section 9 referring to the sidewalks and building codes? Although we're getting into some
Yes, I don't want to be
specific areas there.
I would like to maybe ask the city attorney to suggest a better amendment.
Well, the city attorney's thinking on this, Ms. Harmon?
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to understand. I understand what you're saying, Bob, but the very top of this ordinance, it says an ordinance amending the municipal code regarding collection of expenditures for cleanup and repair of properties found to be in violation of the city code. That information will be included in that ordinance, correct? So it is clarifying what we're doing and why that verbiage is there, correct?
I don't think
Title
a
does
title
not go into the code book.
That does not go into the code book. Okay, gotcha.
But the next, whereas, I mean, we're
So
actually...
whereas will.
Well, no, the Eureka Springs Code shall be amended to follow. And then the event, it talks about mitigation, rehabilitation. down there, so. Ms. Snyder?
Can you take a minute to please explain again how expenses can be called delinquent taxes? Repair expenses?
I'm not sure what your question is.
Okay. Okay. If we have to fix a property, we can put a lien on it, or we can turn it over to the tax collector and have it placed on the tax books as delinquent taxes, so we can
Yes.
get our money back. Explain how this can happen.
Well, as the ordinance, it comes before a public hearing, before the city council, held 30 days, after the receipt to the owner of the property. And then, which would be published in the newspaper for 4 consecutive weeks, as written into here. And then determination of the city council, if, determines how much it is. If they don't like that, then it can be appealed. The amount is determined, plus 10% penalty for collection in accordance with the Arkansas Code. And it's certified by the city council to the tax collector.
Okay, my question is, how can repair money be labeled as delinquent taxes? Now, I asked this last time, and I think you said something about state law, but I don't remember for sure.
It's not delinquent in state taxes. It's just it's a lien. What's the correct word, Mr. Attorney?
Well, the short answer is just what you were just saying. It is authorized by the state code to allow it to be collected in the manner that taxes are collected, but it is not a tax. It is an expense.
Well, it clearly says placed on the tax books as delinquent taxes.
As if it were a delinquent tax is
Do we
probably...
need to reword it? Does the state have it?
That's the way the state words it. That came out of their... And that is the way that the other 3 or 4 cities that do this, 2 or 3 cities that do it. It's not very many, but there are a couple of
Because the
cities.
state says it's okay,
Well, any wording from the state can be challenged in a state court of competent jurisdiction, but since it's been on the books for a while and it's not been challenged, I don't know that we can ask or come up with better wording at this table. Maybe we can. And to answer Mr. Thomas's question, I think the saving grace is the word expense in the changing language. A speeding ticket would not be an expense of the city. Having a police force may be an expense, but it's not directly related to a particular speeding ticket. It's an expense. We can't go and impose our entire city police budget on someone's tax bill.
Yeah.
So if the city hasn't spent money on it, it's not covered by this.
That, I believe, is what the word expense should do for us, yes.
Okay. Any further comments? All right, I think we have a motion and a second to read this by title only. Is that the...
Ms. Schneider?
yes.
Ms. Harmon?
No.
Mr. McClung?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
5-1.
Can I clarify?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Can I say no, or should I have just said I abstain? And the reason why is because I have not had a chance, I didn't have a chance to really read this prior to the meeting.
Abstaining is the same as a no
Okay.
vote. So it doesn't matter.
In terms of count, the ultimate count,
So, Mr. McClung, do you want to make a motion on your amendment?
No, I wanted to read it first.
We need to read this
we
part.
need to read this. I'm sorry, you're right. I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry.
ordinance number 2274, an ordinance amending the municipal code regarding collection of the expenditures for cleanup and repair of property found to be in violation of city code.
Actually, you need to read the title without the changes first. Then, he can propose the changes. That way,
5.04, what was it? I'm sorry, I didn't retain the section.
50404?
Thank you.
Do you have a copy of that? No.
Okay.
that it?
Okay. An ordinance amending the municipal code 5.04.04, collection of expenditures for cleanup.
Mr. McClung?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we add two amendments to this. One would be the title, and amend it to read an ordinance amending the municipal code regarding collection of expenditures for cleanup and repair of properties found to be in violation of city code, would be one. And then also at the bottom of section 1 to add, either method of collection can be used at the discretion of the city. Additionally, each method shall be available to the city with regard to any expenses incurred as a result of a violation of city code, regardless if such violation is found in this title of the municipal code.
Second.
Okay, we got a second and a motion and a second to amend this ordinance. Get further discussion. Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll abstain.
501.
Mr. McClung?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance 2274 on its second reading.
As amended. As amended.
As amended?
As amended.
Yeah, I guess.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I abstain.
Okay. All right. That concludes our normal business for January 14th agenda setting. Ms. Green?
I would like to add onto the agenda, adding a planning commissioner from the council, and then also our animal ordinance. I do have the stuff ready, I just didn't bring it. I will bring it for the next time.
Okay. Get a second on that?
Can we do it one at a time, please?
Okay, planning.
And what was that about planning?
Adding council member.
Adding a council member.
Oh,
Do you second it?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, can I ask her a question real quick?
Okay.
Are you wanting to add a council member if none are found?
I have two.
We probably,
Because we're down to 4 with you gone. Yes, we
She's
definitely
gone.
need to discuss this.
Okay.
yeah, all right. And then the second was
The
the
animal ordinance.
animal ordinance.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Snyder?
Mister?
Beg pardon? You had your hand up. I thought you
Yeah,
had...
you called me Mr. Schneider.
No, I said Ms.
Yes, I
Snyder.
did. I would like to add, okay, in making sure that Susan understood being on planning on a council, you could only vote in one place or the other, going back and looking at stuff. Guess what didn't get added in many years ago when we instigated having this where we could have a councilman sitting on planning, one of those things that was supposed to be tweaked after we voted and never got tweaked. So I would like to add to the agenda, or just plain ask the city attorney to add that to the existing ordinance in regards to any councilman sitting on planning can only vote on one place or the other. They cannot vote on the same issue in both places.
Could you?
Well, I'm kind of saying it so I can find out from the attorney, Mr. Tim. Hello?
I'm listening.
Yeah. can you just do this and bring it to us, or? do we have to discuss it?
We need an amendment to revise the ordinance
Okay, so I would like to put a discussion on
Regarding
this
the
so we can
council.
amend the ordinance.
regarding council members on the planning
Regarding the
commission.
vote of, yes.
Okay. All right, Ms. Harmon?
Can we, and this is just for my benefit, and maybe it doesn't matter to everybody else, but in the future, when we're doing the actual agenda, can we include the ordinance number that it relates to? So at least if we're doing our homework prior to the meeting, we'll know in advance what we need to read?
May I respond to that?
Sure.
Sure.
You'll find when you look at your code that particular sections have ordinances referenced after whatever changes were plugged in. So if something were to come up that you're interested in, and you go to the code book and read that, you will see the answer to your question.
Okay, I guess what I'm just saying is just as a reference, just to be sure I'm looking at the correct ordinance, that any of these discussions, like we just talked about the sidewalk, right? And we had a lot of things that were said as far as what was and what wasn't in the code. And my point was, I brought up, are we talking about the historic district, or are we talking about, am I reading the correct information? So that's all I'm asking is are we able to just reference the ordinance that we're discussing so it's clear to everyone, and so that homework can be done to be clear that we are on the same page? That's all I was asking.
May I respond?
Sure.
I don't want the responsibility of doing your homework for you. If there's something on the agenda, I sincerely believe it is your responsibility to read the code, and if you have a question about the ordinance that is attached to that, dive down, but I don't want to do your homework. So, no thank you. If something you've added, discussion of voting on planning, that's what's going to be on the agenda.
A point of order, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Okay. Yes, sir.
We have agreed in the past that agenda setting was simply a time to state a topic to be added to the agenda, and then
You're absolutely right.
with no discussion.
Correct.
Thank you.
You can't put that on as an agenda item, though.
I was just asking as a...
Question? Okay.
Yeah, just as a question. If
All
there
right,
was something.
we got a little carried away. Any further agenda items? All right, hearing none, council comments. Mr. Thomas, we're still on your end, sir.
Yes. The sound system tonight was horrible, and it impacts in two ways. Number one, if you have a hearing impaired person that's dependent upon the sound system, it's very bad for those people, and we do have hearing impaired people in the audience sometimes. The other thing is that the videographer is dependent upon the soundtrack when he's transcribing for captioning. When I asked him during the meeting, what's wrong with the sound, he pointed at that little box. So I hope that if that little box is defective, it's replaced before at least the next council meeting, but as soon as possible.
Any other comments?
That's my comment.
All right, thank you. Ms. Green?
Just glad to be alive and here.
I'm glad you're here, too. Ms. Snyder?
A couple of things. And since most of us are of the same generation, on this day in 1973, the Vietnam War was officially over. We signed the peace accord yesterday in 1973. Now, that being said, my Marine son, or retired Marine son, and his food truck are going to be in a movie. And it's called Witness Infection. It's a zombie movie. And it's the food in his food truck that causes zombies to become zombies. I can't believe this. It's some small little thing, so I guess it'll be like on TV eventually or on DVD or whatever they have nowadays. It's nothing big in the theater. It took them like 2 weeks to film the whole movie. But I thought it was rather ironic because I was supposed to have announced this like last month and I forgot. We had just gotten done with our world-famous zombie crawl, and he got contacted to be a zombie and his truck be in the zombie movie. So I just wanted to pass that on. I will try to find out when this thing gets done so we can all get a copy, or maybe watch it together. That's it.
Ms. Harmon?
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who voted for me to allow me to be in this position for 2019-2020. That's it.
Mr. Meyer?
Got a lot of homework to do, but I'm enjoying it so far.
Mr. McClung?
Looking forward to 2019. Whoopee.
I want to welcome the new city council meeting. Ms. Harmon and Mr. Meyer both. We're glad you're here and appreciate you being part of public service. And also welcome back to the returning city council members, Ms. Snyder, Ms. Green, and Mr. Thomas, and of course, Mr. McClung.
We get medals for being brave.
And also city clerk and our city attorney. We're glad you're all back and everybody's healthy and doing well. I want to thank y'all for your service and dedication to Eureka. Being January, we don't have a lot of events going on, but we do have probably a pretty neat little event. The 17th through the 20th is the Ozark Mountain Music Festival being held up the Basin Park. It's an Americana Roots-style festival, and headlining this year, I don't know where they come up with some of these names for bands. Hog Slop String Band from Nashville, Tennessee, and the Kitchen Dwellers from Bozeman, Montana. So it should be good. I'm excited to have them here and welcome to town. So if there's nothing else, motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Yeah, thank y'all.